Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And we're still not very good at producing, but we are back. After a 2 week hiatus in which taking care of all of the things, the dog made it. He's good. He's not in here. I'd show him to you. We're back. We're live. And it feels good. And I didn't close the window so you can see the sun setting on the house and me. But before we get started on everything, we still are pushing the Die Free Co. pieces and parts and things. This is their Tiger Claw front. Helps if I have it up right side up. Their Tiger Claw front 4 grip / barrier stop thing, which matches their rear AR-15 grip as well. The most pro 2A live stream and podcast on the interwebs today. These are made in the USA. They gave me a promo code to save you 10% at checkout, which should at least cover your taxes. And, well, doesn't matter. If you live in a state with a tax rate of more than 10%, you probably can't buy these pieces. But you can always try, and perhaps you can import them, but use code TOXIC10 at checkout. Also, it's hard to see, and I have it mounted on my 300 Blackout, but they have a little finger stop / sling swivel piece that's made out of stainless steel, has their logo in it. Very cool, M-Lock compatible. I'm really digging that thing, barrier stop. I've used it quite a bit thus far and really digging that. So check out our friends at Die Free Co., who, whether they know it or not, are supporting the show. But anyway, very pro to a company, and they they send slaps, aka stickers if you're a boomer, with every product that they have shipped me thus far, and they're very cool. That guy's badass. You get that with your Kung Fu grip, which is what the AR grip is actually called, is a Kung Fu grip, which is funny after the Japanese found, I know Kung Fu is not Japanese, but the Japanese found American Twitter and vice versa, and have apparently the Japanese are really into guns, and so with the martial arts culture like Japan, we have all informed them that our martial art is the way of the gun. So Die Free, whether they deliberately did that or not, has a Kung Fu grip, which is badass. So anyway, without further ado, let's start the show. Okay, so you can imagine after 2 weeks of not doing any streaming, not talking about anything, that your beloved host, who still needs no introduction. My name is Rudy, though, if you want to know. Handle is Toxic American. I've got a lot of things to say. We're going to try to keep this to at least, or just an hour, I guess I should say. Anyway, I have a brand new fiber optic connection, which is hopefully going to hold up better than the old, kind of like basically not internet, idiot. It's basically like a cell phone connection, but living out in the sticks has its benefits, and it had some detractions and what have you. But today we are back, and yeah. So I see Arthur is here. Arthur. I was told Ms. Michaels would be attending tonight's show. We'll see if she accepts the invitation. I believe it is Mrs. Michaels, though. I believe she has SSDP, same-sex domestic partner / hitched, lady friend of hers. I don't know that to be fact, but she is into that. And I guess that's one thing that Miss Michaels and I would have in common, is we're both into chicks, so we could talk about that. I guess for those of you who are not hip to the B squared, let's see if I can find it real quick. Jillian Michaels, who is I don't know what to call her necessarily. I guess she's a fitness person. I guess since Arthur brought it up, I was going to hit it at the end of the show, but why not hit it now? Let's see if I can do this. Share tab instead. And we will add to stage. And we'll just hear Miss Michaels in her own words. And ready,
All right.
go.
I'm going to have a little mini meltdown right now.
Mini meltdown.
I want you guys to know that I read as many of your comments as I can. That's not what I'm having a meltdown about. I absolutely love it. I'm so
She has
grateful
a
every time
wedding
you leave
ring
me a
on, by the way.
comment. I'm disappointed in the fact that I cannot deliver a lot of you what you're asking me for. You want a more balanced perspective? I want to give you a more balanced perspective. They don't show up. They don't show up. I asked Wajahat Ali, come on the show. Talk to me about Islam. Tell me where we're getting it wrong. Tell me why this is Islamophobia. Stopped answering me, didn't show up. I've asked all the pro-vaxxers, Dr. Neil Stone, come, have a conversation. Come, let's debate this with the doctors that disagree with you. Here's a platform. No, I don't want to do it. This is my favorite. This is the one that I just got today, which is why I'm so annoyed. We reached out to Planned Parenthood and said, would you be willing to have a conversation with somebody who's pro-choice? Let's show the country that we can come together and have conversations and try to find common ground. We will not be participating. How am I supposed to feature the other side of the argument if the liberals and the leftists will not show up? And that pisses me off even more is because you guys sit on your side of the line and you fire pot shots at people, but then when you're invited to show up, you don't show up. Oh, you're all racist. Okay. Hey, Leslie Jones, you're going to call me a racist. Come, show up. Call me a racist to my face. I want to hear what you have to say. Nothing. No response. Abby Phillip, you sit there and you lie your ass off about me and the things that I said. Come, show up. Let's talk it through. Let's discuss what really happened. Let's discuss where that conversation should go. No response. It's all the same. So I'm going to throw down the gauntlet, okay? So there can be no excuses. We started an email. It's Jillian Michaels KIR pod. My name, Jillian Michaels, the letters KIRPOD at gmail.com. So,
I emailed her, by the way.
So for the love of God, anybody who is brave enough, throw your hat in the ring. I never attack guests. I don't play gotcha. I'm trying to expose people to differing opinions, but I can't do it if you're too chicken shit to show up. Jillian Michaels, KIR pod at gmail.com. I double dog dare you.
I'm going to email her every single day until she accepts. And if she doesn't accept, then, well, I don't know what to do. But anyway, so that's where we're at with that. I did email her. I hit a few base points on there of where I can challenge her on any number of things. One of them is I can challenge her on Israel being her greatest ally. I can challenge her on the war in Iran. I can challenge her on the Muslim thing. I don't really take in her content. I don't find it particularly thought-provoking. I find her to be a political whore, for lack of a better term. Jillian Michaels is another one of these like lifelong they'll say liberal, I'll say leftist. I also challenged her in telling her that I can prove that she is a communist because she apparently despises communists and hates communism and socialism and blah, blah, blah. But it's very, very easy to paint these people into a ideological corner or box, as I said earlier in one of the group chats. And that was a pun that I didn't intend. But hey, it is what it is. Box, what have you. So yeah, Jillian Michaels, I throw down the challenge to you, madam. I told her I would travel to her, I have a fiber optic connection now, which I'm very proud of, by the way. So I have stable internet and I can do it from here. It's fine. I'm not worried about her whatsoever in any of her middle of the road takes that she adopted 10 seconds ago. It's fine. To think that, I understand what she means by you challenge these people on the left to do anything, to come on shows and what have you. We're all very, very conscious of this. I mean, Ben Shapiro and his middle of the road takes on this have been saying it for 5 years. And now, Ben Shapiro, of course, is the one who won't go on a show and debate anyone who disagrees with him. But he will debate 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds on college campuses who he obviously has way more experience on, controls the microphone, can have that person remove the microphone from them. And, it takes a very specific type of hubris to be in a crowd and come up and challenge someone on something like gender ideology or, any number of outlier kind of very, very easy topics to debunk and kind of one up some dumb college kid. And the status of our modern college system and modern institutions as well is to just basically create that kind of hubristic person, take someone with a very malleable opinion or malleable life, what would you say, malleable brain, and then make them think certain things and then reinforce it constantly with never having any sort of outside pushback or pushback from anyone with the same brain. So it's very easy to make a college student look very, very dumb on very, very already dumb held beliefs. So, Ben Shapiro made this whole career off of this thing, and it's not working out well for him. And for some reason, Jillian Michaels thinks that she can go into this space and do the same thing. One of the things I noticed, and let me say this about Jillian Michaels, she recently appeared, or at least the episode dropped fairly recently, a couple, 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I don't know. My time's kind of screwed up after the, life ordeals that I'm dealing with here. Um, she was on You're Welcome with Michael Malice. And Michael Malice's like appointment listening for me. It's shows once a week. I find it very entertaining. I don't have to defend myself for listening to Michael Malice. Go fuck yourself. But anyway, I wasn't going to listen to the episode he had with Jillian Michaels. I ended up listening to it anyway and really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed her on there. She's very, very. She's not a stupid person by any stretch of the imagination. She's very engaging. She's very warm. She's very kind of charming in a way, and very, very, what would you say? Very just kind of welcoming in a weird way with a voice and kind of an openness. She seems like a very nice person. So the thing is like, even if, which she will never ever accept the challenge, even though I linked my Twitter account. I linked my YouTube on there. So I'm very easy to vet. I'm very easy to see kind of what I think and what I say. It's pretty obvious. We're on episode 41 of Pirate Radio, my previous podcast, the Toxic American podcast. I can't remember. I think I have 18 episodes of that. So we're in the neighborhood of like 50, 60 different episodes of me with a microphone yelling random shit into it. So there's that. There's my very, very, very minor Substack, which gets no traction really whatsoever. I also don't contribute to it very much. It's one of those things when I have the random times that I actually have like some extended free time, I tend to get on Substack and do things. But those writing's not my strong suit. Typing's not my strong suit, I should say. And I get frustrated with it very quickly. After constantly having to go back and change and this and that. I'm much better with a pen and just kind of writing out my thoughts and then transposing. So it takes me a lot longer to do any sort of like written word or anything like that. Yes, I can hear someone saying talk text, fuck that. Why don't I just do this? But then there's also on the YouTube, there's plenty of stuff that's gun related and firearms related and all of that. So she's more than welcome to take that. You can vet that, or people can vet that. She obviously has people based on the earpiece she has in her ear. Here's one of the things. I've never consumed her show, the Jillian. I don't know if it's called the Jillian Michaels show. I remember her from The Biggest Loser back in the day. That's how I know who Jillian Michaels is. Was not a huge fan. Pardon the pun. Actually, no, don't pardon the pun. Pun intended. Was not really a huge fan of that very overly produced and fabricated show, which I knew was fabricated at the time, and I knew it was not what we were being shown wasn't real. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that reality TV wasn't actually reality. But now she's entered into this space, and I call her a political whore because she's entered into this politics space with no single thought of her own. And now she's all of a sudden a Donald Trump fan out of nowhere. So, it's one of those hangers on type things. Like, you can take someone like a Laura Loomer, who's not a very intelligent person, who's also like ended up in this space. But like, the one thing you can say about Laura Loomer is she's like to the mat defender of Donald Trump. So, she's like dyed in the wool from what I can tell. So anyway, if that's it, like the only nice thing I can probably say about Laura Loomer. But I don't have horrible things or bad things to say about Jillian Michaels. I do have horrible and bad things to say about Ben Shapiro. And bro, I grew up on Cops, which I'm sure you did as well. Arthur in California, for those listening, said Cops was the only true reality show. The old episodes were gold. Yeah, the old episodes were so good that they actually, like, they had to reel it in. And for those of you who have either back in the day saw them or watched the reruns, when you catch those, like, what was it? I think it came out in like 87. It came out in the late 80s, the show did. And there is one episode where it's like they're chasing some guy. It's a vehicle pursuit through a neighborhood. I forget where they are, but the car that the cops crew is in gets T-boned by another cop car. And so you're literally just like, the cops thing where it's just showing here, here, here. You're right here. And they're like calling it out and they're going through. And then all of a sudden you hear a bang and a crash and the camera just like goes out. And then it's like them getting out. And it's like I think it was the other camera crew came up and was like, oh man, we got T-bone and blah, blah, blah. So like, that's as real as it gets. It got so real that they had episodes. Hell, they had later episodes in the 2000s, like close to like 2018, 2019, where they showed up. They started to where they made them be like the second or third car that would show up. They wouldn't be first on the scene. Yeah, cameraman did clothesline a suspect one time. But as late as like 2018, they had a camera crew, even though they came in late, got caught up in crossfire of an officer involved shooting, and one of the camera sound guys got killed in that. I remember watching an episode too where they're in the lead car and they show up to a domestic and the lady is unconscious on the ground, and it's one cop and a camera crew, and the cop's like kind of old school and gets the guy kind of corralled and she ain't breathing. And the cop is looking around like, what am I supposed to do? And the sound guy goes, I know CPR, you want me to help? And now they're filming a cop and a camera guy perform CPR on an unconscious woman. That's how real fucking Cops was back in the day. So anyway, my side tangent there on Cops and true reality. That was true reality. People got killed. There was a couple of spinoffs of that show. I remember Real Stories of the Highway Patrol. I think that was pretty real. And there was a couple others that just didn't survive because Cops was appointment viewing Saturday night, 7 p.m., man. You were there. Be there or be square. But that said, let's dive into calling horrible names to people like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro and others exude a certain feminine energy. This is where the title of the episode comes from here. What do I mean by Ben Shapiro exudes feminine energy? This Iran war has really kind of brought a whole lot of things to the forefront that I don't think a lot of people ever noticed and are not noticing now, but it's very obvious when I say it, you're going to understand it, that you have a whole line of people, and it's not, Ben Shapiro just has a voice. Mark Levin has a voice. And some of these other guys I'm going to mention, Destiny has a voice. Hassan Piker has a voice. What's that other gay guy who bought kids? Dave Rubin has a voice because they have a platform and they have viewers and they have reach and they have all of this stuff. They will tell you so many times about what you have to do and the things you have to do, but they'll never do those things. Very much so like Ben Shapiro will tell you that we need to go to war in Iraq and Syria and Afghanistan and all of these other places, but they never sign up and they never put their ass on the line. They are, and what they are is the same thing that you see out of a person like an Abigail Spanberger or any number of females who get into like major power. They have this disconnect with the physical world and physical violence, just like a male like Ben Shapiro has this disconnect with physical violence in the physical world because he's never actually been in a physical altercation in his life. And if he has, it was someone knocking him to the ground and calling him a fucking nerd. Okay. That doesn't make it right, that person doing that to him. But my point is that if you've never been in a physical altercation, whether that's with fists, whether that's with, weapons, whatever it is, or just a very, very sketchy situation in which you could have lost your life, and I'm not talking about like a car accident. I'm talking about like human interaction violence. You don't understand the things that you're saying. And not only do you not really understand the things you're saying, you have this inflated sense of ego when you gain any sort of power that you can just willy nilly throw things around. And you see this so much out of females who gain power. A Hillary Clinton, again, an Abigail Spanberger, a Janet Reno. Um, you get these people. Kamala Harris was like this. They have a disconnect of the physical violence of men and of nations. And so they will wield that violence with reckless abandon because they think that their power gives them this sort of inflated, this protective cocoon, if you will, from any sort of repercussions. And a lot of times it does. There are plenty of stories throughout history, the Ceausescus of the world, the women of, like, the wives of dictators were some of the worst people on planet Earth. Point blank, period. Because they, again, have this disconnect. And so they have this whole idea of they have physical power now because they're in charge and they control this police force or this army or this thing. It's the old Hillary Clinton line of Gaddafi when he was killed. We came, we saw, he died. That's a horrific thing to say, okay? I don't even have to defend Muammar Gaddafi to understand, for you to understand that is a horrific thing to say. This disconnect has now spilled over into the male world, represented by guys like Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Hassan Piker, and even the cat known as Destiny on the left. These people have a disconnect with physical violence. They've been insulated from it so much. They feminize themselves so much in the case of a Destiny who sucks dicks, for God's sakes. In the same thing with Hassan Piker, who dresses himself like he's some fucking ladyboy. I don't understand that at all, dude. Jeans and a t-shirt is never out of style. And you see this again with the unhinged rants of a Mark Levin and the crazed, like, frothing at the mouth kind of rants of a Ben Shapiro about all the things we must do, and we got to send these boys in Iran this and Iran that, and we have to do these things, and all Muslims are bad, this, that, and the other. That's feminine bullshit energy. You've never been in a fist fight in your entire life. You've never, ever had to defend yourself. And you talk about all of you get on these platitudes and these high horses, and I know I mentioned it before, but Ben Shapiro used to do ads for Bravo Company USA, BCM, for those of us in the know. And he used to talk about, I have my AR-15 to protect my family. It's like, okay, you're a content guy who creates a whole bunch of content, and you've got a ton of it, but none of us have ever seen you wield a rifle. Oh, you're all for the Constitution and rights, blah, 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 fucking blah. Yeah, but no one's ever seen you with a fucking firearm in your fucking life, in your fucking hands. You're a liar. And that's feminine lying energy as well. You're just a bitch. That's what you are. You're a little bitch who speaks fast, who's fairly intelligent, and came up with all these crazy little right-wing talking points, and now you're being destroyed in the same sphere that you built because you're full of shit, and everybody's seeing it. You're hemorrhaging views, you're hemorrhaging followers, you're hemorrhaging everything. The Daily Wire is in disarray. It's a complete joke. The Daily Wire 5 years ago was like the peak of its powers. It was doing everything. They were making movies. They were doing all of these things, and I guess they're still making movies. I don't know. They hired Candace Owens. They were really on the way up, and now, boom. I mean, it's a joke. It's sad. One of the things is your model is completely fucked and broken, but the other part is that your content is completely fucked and broken as well. You parted ways with Gina Carano. I don't really understand that. Gina Carano went out very graciously and said not an ill word about you at the Daily Wire or whatsoever, but the Daily Wire did not extend that grace to her. Anyhow, I'm sure someone's sitting there going, oh, he won't say anything about Tucker because Tucker's his boy and he loves Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I do like Tucker Carlson, but here's the other thing about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is an avid shooter who carries a firearm and shoots birds for, like, that's what he does in his spare times. He shoots birds out of the fucking sky. Okay? That's pretty based. That's really based. Tucker Carlson can fucking shoot. Guaranteed. Is he going to shoot the same gun I shoot that's behind me? No. But you give him one of those shotguns, he'll start picking you off. Guaranteed. Is he the greatest shot in the world? By his own account, he is not. Is he good enough to put your dumb ass down in his front yard? Yes, he is. Yeah, that's a good point, B. Be put up there. Don't forget Crowder. You know, I've never been a Crowder guy. He is towing the company line. He did break with, the Daily Wire, hardcore. He did it in a bitch way. This is going to sound really weird with my backdrop, but Steven Crowder did one thing early on that really turned me off, that I knew, like, this guy's probably full of shit. And it's where he had, like, a gun on his desk and then was, like, shoulder carrying a Walther PPK, which is like, no, man. No. You should, if you're going to carry like an old school gun with some like flash and flare, carry a fucking 1911 cocked and locked. But whatever. He just told me he didn't know shit about guns and he just bought the pretty one or some shit. But that's a good point. All right. So now that I've talked shit on a bunch of people who make a lot more money at this and have a lot more viewers than I do, let's go back to what I actually wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about this last week, and I really wanted to do this show last week, but it just didn't make sense to do it. And this got a lot of traction last week. It's in regards to the Charlie Kirk assassination and Tyler Robinson. I need to state up front, because there's so many nutters in this sphere. Candace Owens basically kind of started this, obviously. I'm kind of glad I didn't do the show last week, because then Candace Owens posted something that had a whole bunch of idiots come out of the woodwork, and it just made me laugh. Because it ties into like the Ben Shapiro nonsense of the world and that feminization, because so many people cannot do their own thing and their own research and take 5 minutes, literally 5 minutes to go, is that really what's going on? You know, I would think in a post-COVID world where we understand that the experts are full of shit, or at least need to be investigated just a little bit and not just taken at face value. And that's when we're talking about quote unquote experts that are kind of civilian experts in, different matters. When we're talking about the government being experts, like a Anthony Fauci and those ilk, we really should never trust them, because there is always a vested interest, whether it's financial or power. That is really something we need to take a look at. And what I'm talking about, get to the point, dumbass. What I'm talking about here is this report. Share it. We're producing. Share. Okay. Did it share? It did share. All right. Produce. So this is a report from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives on the ballistics of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Okay. This report is indicative of how garbage pseudoscience forensic ballistics are. I've talked about this before. I think I even wrote about this once. If I didn't actually publish it, I need to, because I've written about it numerous times. I've talked about it constantly. I've done at least 2 episodes pretty much dedicated to this. So let's just go over this report. Apparently there's 4 pages. I can only find 2 of them. I posted them a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago, whatever. But this is the thing that got people trying to dunk on Candace Owens. And I should also state that I haven't listened to what Candace Owens has said about this whole thing. I'm not interested in the whole like Turning Point USA, Erica Kirk, all of those angles. Look, man, I don't know who Erica Kirk is, but I do know that her husband and father of her children was murdered on live television, or, in on a live stream in real time and it's everywhere. And I'm not going to bash somebody's widow. Okay. I'm not going to do that. So I'm coming at this from a pure a fact standpoint and a pure, what are you trying to tell me standpoint on this whole thing. So let's go over this report that the ATF came out with for I believe the defense for Tyler Robinson requested this. But anyway, so exhibits. There's 6 exhibits. Exhibits 1 through 6. Exhibit 1 is quote unquote, Mauser Model 98 30-06 Springfield caliber rifle bearing serial number 8863 with an optical accessory. That is a weird way to put all of this because the Mauser 98, it's actually a 98K based on the picture I saw in a different stock, rebarreled for 30-06 from 8mm Mauser. And these, okay, you're probably already seeing the problem I'm going to have with this. So we'll move on to Exhibit 2 is 30-06 Springfield caliber cartridge case. So this would have been the bullet would have been fired from this, which struck Charlie Kirk, and this is the spent case. Exhibit 3, 30-06 Springfield caliber cartridge. So exhibits 3, 4, and 5 are 30-06 Springfield caliber cartridges. So these are the unspent, unfired cartridges that were left in the magazine. Far as I know, it will still hold 5 rounds in that magazine. Now it is a non-detachable magazine. If you look here, this is the Mauser 98K. You know what? Let me grab it. I have it. Why not show it to you, right? Give me a second. Did not plan on props today, so let's remove that. So this is a Mauser 98K. This is the internal box magazine. This is non-detachable without taking out these screws. Bolt action rifle. If you're not familiar, you're going to load your rounds into here one at a time or with a stripper clip. We're not going to get into that, but this will hold 5 rounds from the factory. This would have been 8mm Mauser. Both are 30 caliber cartridges. By the way, we'll get into that here in a second, but this would have held 5 rounds. The 30-06 is not any larger than the 8mm Mauser would have been. So this, even rebarreled for 30-06, this would have held 5 rounds. Okay, so the one that Tyler Robinson allegedly had and used had a different stock on it. So basically, if you're not familiar, you can take this out of this wooden stock, the whole barrel, the whole action, all of that, and you can put it in a different stock. Okay, so this is a Mauser. It's the K because it is the carabiner, which would mean. So the reason I pointed out that it was a Mauser 98K. K means carabiner, which means carbine in German, which means it would have been shorter than an actual Mauser 98. An actual Mauser 98 would have been, I think it's about 5 inches longer, which would make it quite a bit more unwieldy. Still would have been the same caliber, would have done the same thing. But anyway, set this to the side. Hope it doesn't fall down because we might need that in a second. Even if, here's the thing. Even if it does fall, it has fallen before because some German soldier was carrying it and this got captured by the Russians. So it's like only dropped once kind of shit. Anyway, so back into the report. So now we're back into the report. So we're on exhibit number 6. 1 bullet jacket fragment and 4 lead fragments designated 6A through 6E. Those are going to be the fragments that were recovered from Mr. Kirk. Horrible. Anyway, so results of examination. This report refers to exhibits by lab number. The following results only apply to the items tested. The Exhibit 1 rifle was test fired and found to be in operable condition. It just means it works. It does fire, does all the things. You can load a cartridge and it will fire the cartridge. The test fires were designated as Exhibit 111. Okay, 1.11. Exhibit 2 consists of one 30-06 Springfield caliber fired cartridge case bearing a Remington head stamp. Basically tells us nothing. The Exhibit 2 cartridge case was identified as having been fired in the Exhibit 1 rifle. Okay. Exhibits 3 through 5 consist of three 30-06 Springfield caliber fired. These are the unfired cartridges bearing a Remington head stamp. Would appear that they were the same ammunition from the same ammunition manufacturer. The Exhibit 2 cartridge case and Exhibit 3 through 5 cartridges were examined for the presence of comparable tool marks. Tool marks. Tool marks were located on the exterior of the Exhibit 2 cartridge case and Exhibit 3 cartridges, scribe marks, that are consistent with being produced by engraving and or rotary cutting tips commonly found, we continue on, installed in handheld rotary tools such as a Dremel tool. These tool marks contain marks of value for comparison if a suspect tool is located. Let's stop right there, even though there's a highlighted point we're going to get to in a second. So what the ATF is alleging here and is trying to tell us is that if you remember the cartridge casings that we were shown pictures of, this would be a cartridge case, had engravings on them, and I forget exactly what they said, or that was engraved on the cartridges. So basically what they're saying is that allegedly Tyler Robinson took a Dremel tool and scribed in, I forget what it was, but various one-word sayings, single words on the cartridge case. And what the ATF is alleging is that if they were somehow able to find the Dremel tool or Dremel type tool, rotary tool, more commonly known as a Dremel, it's like Kleenex in regards to facial tissue, that they then would be able to take that tool and take that bit that he placed in that tool and match up the bit to the engraving. Sure thing. But remember that. Back to the report. Exhibit 6 consists of one 30 caliber class deformed/damaged bullet fragment designated 6A and 4 lead fragments designated 6B through 6E. Not sure why some person highlighted that, but anyway. The Exhibit 6A bullet jacket fragment could not be identified or excluded as having been fired from the Exhibit 1 rifle based on an agreement of all discernible class characteristics and neither sufficient agreement nor sufficient disagreement of individual characteristics. The result of the comparison was inconclusive, and then they bracketed inconclusive. I'll come back to that. Firearms that produce general rifling characteristics similar to those observed on the Exhibit 6A bullet jacket fragment include numerous makes and models. They just gave up the game. Right there. The Exhibit 6B through 6E lead fragments are not suitable for microscopic comparison, which means they're damaged beyond belief, and there's no way to tell anything from the shit because the bullet disintegrated basically on impact, completely tore apart, tearing apart Charlie Kirk's insides. There you go. I'll skip to the bottom paragraph here. So, the bottom paragraph. The following techniques were used in the examination of one or more of the exhibits described above. And those techniques were microscopic comparison, visual/physical examination, and product make/model determination. Okay, so there's any number of things that I have an issue with that report. First and foremost is you can't tell me, even based on your own flawed pseudoscience, you can't tell me that the bullet fragments pulled out of Kirk's body came from the rifle that you claim it came from. Okay. I mean, bullet jacket fragment could not be identified or excluded as having been fired from the Exhibit one rifle based on an agreement of all discernible class characteristics and neither sufficient agreement nor sufficient disagreement of individual characteristics. So it becomes inconclusive. This is the key thing, because if you look at the Ames 1 or Ames 2 studies, which are the Ames 1 was a study that was supposed to prove that forensic ballistics was completely a science and it was repeatable and anyone could do this. Well, there were so many questions left that they had to do an Ames 2 study. And the Ames 2 study was the same thing. The problem with this whole thing is it is completely subjective. So I brought more props. So this is a fired 30 caliber projectile. This is an unfired 30 caliber projectile. These are the same projectiles. Notice a difference? This is the end of that fired projectile. These are the petals that come off. This is also a 30 caliber projectile. You can't tell me. So what happens is, this is the problem with the forensics, is that, so I have this fired projectile, okay? This is a big chunk of it. There are rifling marks on this projectile. I can see them with my naked eye. I can see where the rifling grabbed a hold of this. And the reason you have rifling is to spin it. And when you spin, you have itchy nose. When you spin, you create stabilization. It's like why you spiral a football, create stabilization. It goes farther, it's more accurate, what have you. So I can see rifling on this. Now, if I give this to Arthur or to Exit or to B, and I say, if I have 5 of these, if I have one, and I give them each 5 rounds, or I give them 20 rounds, and I give them 4 rifles, and I say, okay, you're going to fire these 5 rounds, or 5 rounds through each of the rifles. That's going to give you, 5 spent cartridges or shot bullets that are going to have rifling on them. Now, here's this bullet that I shot out of one of those rifles. Can you tell me which rifle it was shot out of? They're going to have to fire those rounds, come back, analyze, and look at it. And the thing is that you're going to probably get 3 different results from those 3 different guys. Okay? And that's what happens in the forensic ballistics, because when you take the Ames 1 and 2 studies, they have 3 identifiers, okay? They have identification is your first classification is identifier. Okay, I've identified that this is the bullet shot from that gun. These bullets match up perfectly, okay? That's identification. Then you have elimination. That means I shot a bullet out of this rifle and it is definitely not matching the bullet that we have, so it's definitely not this rifle. So we've eliminated that one. And then the third category is something called inconclusive. Okay, inconclusive means, I don't know. Can't tell you either way. I don't know. Could be, could not be. Don't know. Just don't know. So in the Ames studies, what they did is when they had a deliberate test in which there was a projectile that matched none of the firearms used, what they got was they got a 1% fake error rate, which is fine. You're going to have a kind of an error rate with any sort of thing that you're doing in the scientific world, apparently. And then they had a split of 65% of them had eliminated the projectile and said, this is definitely not it. But then they had 34% that said, I don't know, it's inconclusive. I don't know. And what they do is they don't take inconclusive as a no. What they do is they take inconclusive as a, well, it didn't say no, so therefore it kind of said yes. And so what they'll tell you is it has a 99% success rate of telling you yes, or what bullet came out of what firearm. That is completely inaccurate. So you have at best a 65% success rate, and you have at worst, what? A 64% success rate? So There are numerous. Maryland State Supreme Court is one of the ones that does not allow tool marks in regards to ballistics and ballistic experts because it is subjective. It's subjective as hell. And that's the biggest thing about the report for Tyler Robinson in the Tyler Robinson case about that is let's go back and see what it said when it says inconclusive. They did it twice. So the bullet jack fragment could not be identified. All the characteristics, it's inconclusive. And then somehow they're able to tell you that Exhibit 2 cartridge, the spent cartridge case, was identified as having been fired in the Exhibit 1 rifle. Now, how do they tell that? Because they take the spent casing, and again, this is where tool marks come back. They're going to take the casing that was fired out of the rifle. In this case, it's a bolt-action rifle. They're going to work the action, and then they're going to take the casing they had, and they're going to take that one, and it's going to make a little mark somewhere on it from the extractor or what have you, and the firing pin on the back end, and they're going to go, yep, those look about the same. Okay, so even if you take that at their word that they can do that, let's go a step further, and let me put the report back up here. Let's go a step further. Let's look at what they say, okay? So, you have a .30 caliber class damaged bullet fragment that is damaged beyond recognition, that there is no rifling marks that can be taken from it, even though those don't actually work. But let's say that they did. You have a bullet damaged beyond recognition, and somehow you're able to tell me it's a .30 caliber projectile, which if you do a 3-second Google search will tell you that there are hundreds of .30 caliber projectiles out there. Mind you, this in my hand is a .30 caliber projectile. This is a 300 blackout. This and this are not really the same. Even though the bullet does fit on the end of it, this does not fire out of this. But both of these are .30 caliber. Yes, an 8mm Mauser is a .30 caliber rifle, but this is a .30 caliber projectile. 30-06 is a .30 caliber projectile. 7.62 by 51 or 308 Winchester is a .30 caliber projectile. Actually, the 308 and the 30-06 are very, very similar. So if you go into the millimeter conversions, which I don't really like to do because, you know, Team America, Moon, what have you, metric system can lick it. The 30-06 is a 7.62 by 33 millimeter, and the 308 is a 7.62 by 51 millimeter. Those are going to have the same width on the projectile. They're just going to be not as long. This is more like bullshit feminine thinking. The amount of people that wanted to tell me, oh no, you see that? You see that? You see there where it says, what line is that? Line 3 of the results examination, or excuse me, line 4 of the results examination, that Exhibit 2 cartridge was identified as being fired from Exhibit 1 rifle. Okay, you don't even know how they determine that. You think it's like this is a real science. It's not. It's literally looking at markings that were made by metal touching metal, you know, steel touching brass, and going, yep, that's the same marking. It's not, and you can't tell that. You can't tell me the things that this rifle here has in common with the alleged murder weapon of Charlie Kirk is that this bolt and that bolt are going to be the same. You don't have to change out the bolt when you change the barrel. It's going to cycle this, okay? You're telling me that this giant extractor right here, the Mauser style action and that giant extractor couldn't cause the same marking, this rifle to that rifle or vice versa? You're telling me that without a doubt that there is no other rifle on planet Earth. Mind you, the Germans produced millions of these in World War II. You're telling me that there's no rifle on planet Earth that could have possibly done that. You just said, well, I have a rifle. I have a dead guy. Let's run some bullets through it. Is it close? Yep, it's close. That's subjective. Bullshit. That is complete and utter bullshit. The other thing about the Mauser rifle that is unique to this rifle, at least of World War II, and that the Russians still haven't figured out on an AK-47, which is an automatic, or semi-automatic and automatic rifle, it has a fucking bolt hold open on a bolt action. The Russians still haven't figured this out. They captured this. This has electro pencil on it, which means the Russians captured this, refurbished it, and put it back out there. It has a fucking last round bolt hold open, and they missed it. And all of you AK stands are retarded. You don't even have a bolt hold open. How do you know when you're out of bullets? And then you rock and lock that stupid thing back in there? Idiots. Anyway, AKs are cool looking, but when you're talking about like, I need a modern gun to do this whole thing, no. Fuck that. AKs suck. You know, the things that are left off the report, that's what I was going to get to. So, okay. This is a very unique bullet, 300 Blackout by Guerrilla Ammunition. That is a 196 or 198 grain projectile, which then has these 3 laser cut petals that then, when it hits soft tissue, they peel off, and you have a slug that keeps going. This is a very unique bullet. So that's kind of my point. If forensic ballistics are so good, why can't they tell me, why didn't they put in the report, they have a fired projectile that they removed from Kirk's body and got back. Why can't they tell me what style of bullet it was? They just tell me it's a 30-06 with a Remington head stamp. You can't tell me how old the ammunition is. You can't tell me what lot it was. You can't tell me where it was produced. You can't tell me. That's the other thing is like, you know, I don't even have a weight grain. Why don't we know a weight grain? Why don't we know if it was a soft point, if it was a hollow point, open tip match, full metal jacket? Probably wasn't a full metal jacket, it didn't go through them. Why can't you tell me what type of projectile it was? Do you even know? Was it like some, you know, some newer projectile? You know, I'm not really up to date on the current evolution of the 30-06 projectiles, but I know that there's like ballistic tip match stuff out there. There's ballistic tip with a little rubber tip on the end, a little plastic tip on the end that's like a varmint round, and, you know, any number of things. Was it something specialized like this shit? Or was it just run-of-the-mill bullshit from like, you know, Army surplus, just soft point bullshit? I don't know. Why can't you tell me? Why is that not in the report? You have the bullets. You have unshot cartridges. Why don't you tell us what type of bullet it is, what the weight grain is? Do you not know? Why can't we know? Why is that on in the report? That seems to be something of some note and value. You know, and it also, based on this ballistic report telling us the bullet basically is completely damaged beyond recognition, this also lends to what I've said earlier, that yes, it most certainly could have been a 30-06 or 30 caliber bullet. Let's say it is a 30-06, whatever, that shot Charlie Kirk and did not pass through. This is what so many of us were trying to say to the nutters of the world, the Candace Owenses of the world, and to that other idiot whose name I can't remember, is like Ian or some shit. I don't know. It's the whole thing we were trying to tell you, to that Valhalla Java or Valhalla Green Beret or whatever that guy idiot's name is, where you're out there shooting like cow parts. And it's like, dude, that's not, no, because weird shit happens when bullets hit soft tissue, and especially when that soft tissue is packed full of water or liquid. You cannot ever know what's going to happen with that bullet. Any hunter can tell you that. Anybody with half a brain can tell you that. The idea that then that's before we take into account, I mentioned this before, you're taking a shot from an elevated position. You know, Charlie Kirk is like, let's say he's on ground level. It looked like it was kind of an amphitheater where it stepped down. You know, and this cat, whomever it was, even if it was Tyler Robinson, which I'm starting to get a little, I don't know, man. He's on an elevated position on a roof of a building. So when you're firing from an elevated position, one, the ballistics change a little bit. or the point of aim, point of impact change. I guess that's ballistics. That changes a little bit, but it also, if you're sitting there, if your target is sitting there and you're in an elevated position, well, one, you have to assume that the bullet is going to trajectory downward if it does pass through. So all the people saying it didn't make a mark behind him, it's like, it's shooting from an elevated position. Why would it go like this? Now that can happen, but you're going to have to hit bone, and then it's going to, it can happen. But the thing is like, it also, the odds are in the favor of when you're from an elevated position and you're firing downward, it's going to hit and go down. The trajectory is going to be pushed downward. The spine curves it curves. Your bones are curved. There's a curvature to them. If he's leaning forward, even if he's just perpendicular, just perfectly upright, the odds of that bullet coming in, hitting and going downward are very, very high. So this idea that, oh no, there's no way it could be a 30-06, you would have just blown right through him. Shut the fuck up. You guys are retarded. You guys are, they're the same people. Like, this is what annoys me with, like, Candace Owens going just off and talking out of her ass about ballistics and bullets and all of this stuff, is that you don't even know what you don't know. And now when you talk about ballistics and you say, there's no way it could be a 30-06 because it would have went through them, you get a report like this, and then anytime you say anything about it, people go, well, she's full of shit. There was a point where I have to read the report. I have to look at it. I have to, take my experience, friends' experience, just my shooting experience, just the things I know, which is not a whole bunch of knowledge, but it's enough to know that this is bullshit. It's enough to know that Candace Owens doesn't know anything. It's enough to know she doesn't know what she doesn't know. The same thing with all of the people around it that are doing this whole conspiracy thing. Did Tyler Robinson shoot him? I don't know. Did he shoot him with this Mauser 98 converted into 30-06? I don't know. Was the 30-06 round to shoot him? Seems likely. Could it definitely have been a 30-06 round and not pass through him? Absolutely. It certainly could be, especially if it's some sort of soft point where it just basically, you're talking about a 140-yard shot too. You're losing feet per second and muzzle energy every time, every inch, every foot outside of that barrel. That's the other thing, like with the gun. What length of barrel are we talking about? Why is that not in the report? I really don't understand. So much of the report is the things that are not in the report. Why is that not in the report? Why is it not extensive of this was a Mauser 98 action, or it doesn't even give you the year. That's the other thing. One of the reasons I like old rifles like this is everything is on it. They didn't put serial numbers on it because they were required to. These are basically like inventory numbers. You got to have all these different markings to know what year, what factory, and what numbers we're dealing with. So then when this goes to the garrison or the armory or whatever, you go, well, there's rifle 237. It was proof marked here, here, and here. This looks good to go. It's a model 98, mod 98. Okay, looking good there. Great. It was made in 1938, so there's our date. There's our proof. There's the proof of the bolt maker, there's the proof of the barrel maker, and there's the proof of the guy who shot it. We have all of our markings in order. There we go. Yep, we got a 38. We got that. Boom. There's another mark on here that I can't see because it's kind of dim in here. That will tell you what factory it was made at. That's one of the cool things about these rifles, is they have markings all over them, and you know exactly kind of where it came from, when it was made, all of that. Why don't we know that? Why don't we know that? It's right there. The report could say, oh no, the markings were scraped off. It's very odd to me that the same organization that will tattoo your ass with a fucking felony if you remove a serial number, even though at the time the serial number was not required on a rifle like this, if I were to wipe that serial number off, that's a fucking felony. The same organization that would tattoo you with a felony and a fine will not tell you what the serial number on it or what year it was made and all of those things. What the fuck? How is that a thing? How is that even a thing? The same organization that has to enforce the unconstitutional National Firearms Act that will tell you that if this barrel is less than 16 inches, this somehow becomes a short barreled rifle. And if it's less than 36 inches overall, it is still a short barreled rifle. And I have to get a tax stamp to have it, to make it, to own it. That same organization won't tell us what length the barrel is on the weapon used to murder Charlie Kirk, allegedly used to murder Charlie Kirk. I really didn't have a whole lot of like kind of conspiracy theories or questions of what the weapon was that was used. I now have those because there was just something that didn't sit right when we were initially showed the photo of the alleged murder weapon just laying there in like a box on the ground, dimly lit. Just didn't look right, didn't feel right. Go along with it. Yes, it could be a 30-06 that did it. Never really questioned that it could have been that. Now I'm really starting to question a lot of this. Like, you have this footage of him allegedly jumping off of the top of the building, but not getting on the top of the building. We haven't seen that footage. And yet again, even though Tyler Robinson allegedly used a Mauser 98, and I'm going to assume it's based on what I saw, it was 98K. It was the shorter version. Even though it was in a different stock, it wasn't going to be significantly shorter than the stock that would have come on its stock. Pardon the pun there. It just would have been lighter and probably a little more ergonomic. But the idea that he hid this in a backpack, I don't know. You're telling me that he walked onto that campus with a rifle in a backpack and no one noticed, no one saw it, and no one saw him getting on the roof and the camera didn't catch it. I have questions, to say the least. And then you can talk about, I had heard, well, he had confessed. Tyler Robinson confessed. He's told everyone that he did it. And then you look into that, and I don't see a confession. I haven't heard the police say there was a confession other than he allegedly confessed to his secret lover that is some sort of trans person. I forget which way. I think it's a trans woman. There's the alleged text messages that my friend Jake pointed out. What kids talk like that, which is a very, very good point. And also, he allegedly confessed, in essence, to his parents, but not really, according to the governor of Utah. So it's like very, very shaky here. And the idea that he did this because of trans or something, that's a highly motivated individual that pulled off a crime that was like the perfect crime at the time and then confessed to his lover or whatever. Oh man, I don't know. I've got some questions is all I'm going to say. And that I didn't have a lot of these questions. I just assumed there was plenty that we weren't being shown because they're building the case or they're doing whatever, and at trial all of this would come out was kind of my thought. But then I saw this ballistics report, and it was just, this is exactly the thing that I've been yelling about, that this whole forensic ballistics is some way to prove that this bullet came from this firearm. It's absolute and utter fucking nonsense, and everyone needs to stop buying into it. This is not CSI. This is not some other horrible television show that has warped your brain. You cannot tell what bullet came from what gun based on any sort of microscopic or subjective evidence or subjective practice that we have today. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. It's not repeatable. And I hear people out there probably going, oh, well, a 64% success rate's pretty high. Okay. Do you want 64% of the jurors to say that you're guilty, so that means you're guilty in a murder trial? That's not the standard of evidence that we have. And the burden of proof, guys, is on the state. You're innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. And the state is going to have a very hard time proving this case. If this dumbass with a high school education can get any sort of doubt in your head, I would think that a defense attorney, especially a high profile case like this where someone wants to make a name for themselves, this is I don't have any like inside baseball insider knowledge. This knowledge is out there. Anyone can find this. The Ames 1 and 2 studies are out there. The Reason magazine articles are out there. The Field of Firearms Forensics articles are out there. The state Supreme Court decision by the Maryland Supreme Court is out there with a complete, breakdown in their court documents. Like, it's all out there. It's not hard to find. Again, maybe I should send an email. No, I'm not getting involved. If they see this podcast, well, then they earned it. And then, I won't go testify for them because I'm not getting involved. My level of involvement is at the ground level of the getting back our Second Amendment protected right. Okay? This whole idea that the illusion of safety and the illusion of solving crime through forensic ballistics, all it is, as I said in that episode before when I talked about this, all this is a backdoor, nonsensical way to create some sort of registry of firearms. And it's using that registry, which is illegal, to then confiscate and convict people at some later date with a pseudoscience that they've launched into the mainstream through shitty TV shows and convinced everyone that all they need is to find the bullet or the casing and they can tattoo it to your firearm and send you to prison. That's bullshit. And stop buying into it. Stop thinking like a bitch. Stop listening to Ben Shapiro. No one really listens to Mark Levin. He's just funny because he's insane. Stop listening. If you're listening to Destiny, don't ever just tune out. But anyway, this has been fun coming back. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center and the shit that they've gotten themselves into. None of it is surprising if we're being honest. I don't think anyone is surprised. If you're not familiar, the Southern Poverty Law Center just got indicted by the FBI under 11 counts. I forget what the counts, but it's an 11 count indictment for basically taking donations and then paying the people they supposedly disliked, like neo-Nazis and other racist people and other anti-Semites, to then do their racist and anti-Semitic things. And I haven't had a chance to really dive into it and check out exactly what was happening, but there was someone talking about, wouldn't it be crazy if the Southern Poverty Law Center funded the people who showed up at Charlottesville and created all of this complete and utter nonsense that then got tattooed to Trump through a doctored video? And it's possible that the SPLC had something to do with that. It's all possible that they're all in cahoots. And it's all possible that it would be nice if the Trump administration had started doing this from day one instead of launching a war of lies and nonsense into Iran. That would have been nice, but that's not where we're at, is it? It is also kind of a baller move, if we're being honest, for the Southern Poverty Law Center to, the demand is outstripping the supply of racisms and anti-Semitisms and other isms and what have-en isms in the United States of America. We all know that. Everyone listening to this and watching this knows that. You're all smart individuals, at least somewhat. We all know that. But I don't think any of us really knew exactly that it was being funded from the same groups that said they were fighting it. I mean, it points to these entities that exist only because their issue exists. It's like GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. Well, the second that gays and lesbians were, when Obergefell went down, um, and gays and lesbians were allowed to get married on the national level and it couldn't be prevented, well, that should have been the end of GLAAD, right? No, then they went into trans. And then they're probably into anti Semitism at this point. These groups don't ever go away, they just find other reasons to exist. SPLC was playing the long game and paying their opposition to do it. I mean, it's genius. The dumb thing was you got caught. It also, oh man, I wish I could remember who pointed this. Oh, I think it was Robbie the Fire Bernstein pointed this out, that this is really like the current FBI indicting the former FBI. Because you had what's the guys with the tiki torch dudes? You had all those groups where they would show up to these places and we're all of us on the right are like, bro, what? That's not right. That's definitely not feds. Not at all. And so now it's like, now it just makes so much sense. It's like the pieces came together. It's amazing. But anyway, I don't really know much more to talk about on that. I think a lot more is going to come out. It's just pretty wild, but I do like talking about ballistics and telling everyone how dumb they are to believe into them. That was the other kind of energy on the whole ballistics things, is the people that wanted to argue not only with Candace Owens exudes more male energy than she does female energy as far as like, personal vibes. Obviously, she's female. I'm not trying to say she's a man or anything, but she has a lot more male energy than bitch ass female energy. Although she'll tap into it from time to time. So many of the people coming after her, and so many of the people coming after me, even though I said it's complete and utter bullshit, were chicks. They're just a bunch of dumbass females. And if we're going to be honest, who really led the charge for lockdowns and the whole COVID nonsense? It was feminine led. You went after, you attacked, you directed your attack towards women by talking about the kids, talking about schools, talking about animals, and talking about all these things. You went after the women. You weaponized the women against the men, and a lot of men, super feminized because they listened to Ben Shapiro, were like, oh, let's just go along to get along and all of that. And they did the same thing with the jab. They went after the women. They targeted them. They said, you need to get this. You don't want to hurt your baby. You don't want to hurt your kids. Just get the jab. It'll be fine. They'll be fine. All that. And now you got myocarditis, and you got all types of issues out there with reproductive issues and what have you. So there you go. You'll notice that pattern where they wage war and they use women against you. So understand when you're hearing the bitch ass feminine energy that a guy like Ben Shapiro puts out, and don't listen to it and understand where it's coming from. That said, everyone, thank you for joining me. It's fun to come back. I'll do this again next week, barring any sort of like anyone else needing fucking surgery. Hopefully it's not me either, but thanks everybody for hanging out. Thank you for commenting. Thanks for the likes and subscribes and what have yous. Go buy some shit from Die Free Co. and enter code Toxic10 for 10% off at checkout. And until next time, everybody, thank you for hanging out and peace.